So, Shelley, fantastic to meet you on Skype. And I recently found out about your work. You are the, was it a professor of sociology and the director of the Michelle Clayderman Institute for Gender Research at Stanford. Is that right?
That's correct. Nice to meet you.
Great. Thank you so much for spending some time talking to me today. I wanted to ask you about that fantastic research that you've been talking about the unconscious bias and how you sent out CVs, or CVs were sent out with a man's name on, the same CV with a woman's name, and, speak to that about the take-up, about what was happening with that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the progress we have made, I think around the world is that a lot of blatant bias and sexism has gone away,
yes.
And what we're left with is much more unconscious kind of stuff, which is in a way it's harder to root out, but
it's subtle, isn't it? It is harder to root out because if you can't see it, you can't handle it.
That's right. And the blatant stuff was easy to see, at least. So, but anyway, yeah, so we've been doing, at the institute I run, we've been doing a lot of trainings on reducing unconscious bias. And one of the studies, the one you're referring to that we cite a lot, was a study that was done in the field of psychology. And basically what the authors of this study did was they sent out CVs for a person who was going to be a brand new PhD and a candidate for a faculty position in a psychology department. And the CV, half the people that received it, half the psychology faculty that received it to rate it, got the CV with a woman's name on it. And the other half got the very same CV. I mean, all the same grants, all the same publications, everything was the same, except that it had a man's name on it. So that was the only difference. And so it's a perfect design for seeing if bias is mattering. Yes, yeah. And not only did the researchers find that people greatly preferred the man over the woman, that is, they saw him as being worthy of hire for a tenure-track position at a way higher rate than the woman, the gap was astonishingly large. It was about a 30 percentage point gap between whether or not they would recommend the man for hire versus recommend the woman for hire. So it was a really big gap. Since then, that was in 1995. So we might hope that, things have just gotten better. But since then, in 2012, at the end of 2012, a very similar study was done in the United States where they sent out resumes for a person applying to be a science lab manager. Same design. They sent it out to science faculty all over the United States, and half of them got the resume with a man's name, half with a woman's name. And sure enough, in 2012, you find the same pattern. These science faculty who were doing the rating were more likely to say they would hire the man than the woman. If they were going to hire the man, they were going to pay him a higher salary, and they said they would be more likely to mentor the man should he be hired. So we sort of see women being disadvantaged across all those dimensions, even in 2012. And even when it's science faculty doing the evaluation, I think we think of science faculty as being, objective, looking at the facts. And yet we find this. So that kind of unconscious, these are people that there's no reason to believe they're, evil people out to do bad things. It's that gender is affecting how they see the applicant, even without them being aware of it. And that's a really tough problem that we've been working on. Right. Yeah, I think it's really hard because, these things come about because simply we're quickly categorizing people without even thinking about it. Yeah. And if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be able to make it through the day. You think about when you go to sit down in a chair you've never seen before, you don't stop and puzzle over whether it's a chair. You just quickly categorize it as a chair and sit in the thing. You couldn't get through life if you didn't take these shortcuts. And so that's what's happening here. But unfortunately, what's happening is that's introducing bias into our evaluation. So I think it's the kind of thing that we have to be very diligent about, paying attention to how it is that we're evaluating men versus women, and being, very, very much self-monitoring our decision making.
I think it's right when you use the word shortcuts in our thinking, and that's where we have to pause and be more conscious of our thinking. So
exactly.
On the basis that this is happening, and it's going to be happening, you've done this research in America, you talk about this research from America, I'm sure it won't be any different in the UK, it'll be the same over there. What about this question of quotas that people talk about? If I was a senior, if I was a woman in a senior position in a large organisation and they talked about quotas, if I project myself out into that position, I might think, if I get promoted to the top job, is it because I'm good? Or is it because I'm filling up the numbers? So I can see the resistance, but the rate of change is so glacial. What do you think about the issue of quota, the conversation about that?
it's a double-edged sword. I mean, on the one hand, you're right, the pace of change has been so slow, and so putting a quota up there, immediately, starts to change the numbers, and changing the numbers are extremely important, right? I think we know that getting more women into positions of power is extremely important for not only equality, but for our societies and for our businesses and all of that. But you're right, it comes at a cost. The cost is that, you as a woman might think, oh, was I really talented enough to be here? Even if you think you were, those people around you might suspect that you're there because of the quota, not because you're talented. And so I think it's that's the negative side of it. So to me, if there was some other way to get women into those positions without a quota, that's what I would prefer. It's just I don't know what that is, So then I think we have to sort of try to manage the stigma that could become associated with women if people think they're in those positions just to fill a slot.
Yeah.
It reminds me of one of my colleagues here who was the first law professor at the Stanford Law School, and someone asked her when she got the job how it felt to get the job because she was a woman. And she said, it feels a lot better than not getting the job because I was a woman, and that's been my experience before.
Yeah. But, I think you're right. It's a challenging discussion. But I think even just talking about it pushes the agenda forward. The threat of it, the possibility, pushes the conversation forward.
And in the United States where quotas are it's like it's a bad word here. I think similar kind of things that have been done, for example, are, people publish data on the percentage of partners at a law firm that are women. And they put that up there when students are looking for jobs. And, the companies respond to that because, people want to work, young students who are lawyers want to work in firms that are more gender equitable. And so you put those numbers up there and sort of shame people, draw attention to it. And I think that helps as well.
Information, yes. Being transparent. I think that's the key, isn't it? Fantastic. Yeah, you're right.
Yes.